Good morning, everybody. My name is Andrew Alvarez, and I'm the Latino Conservative. Thanks for joining me again today. Today is Tuesday, December the 1st. That means yesterday was the last day of November. So for my car business friends out there, how did you do? How did you close up? Did you knock it out of the park, or did you miss it by a few? Also, some words of encouragement coming from a car business guy myself. Don't miss the last of the month goals by what you didn't do at the beginning of the month. A lot of people try to just scramble and get that end of the month quota, but forget that there's work to do at the beginning of the month too. So yeah, be sure to stick around and join me for some topics that I have. I have some great news for some conservatives out there. But before we get into all that, you know the drill. Go to like, subscribe, and share. Sign up for alerts. Help me get over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. That's my quest. My goal was to have that by the end of the year. May not be exactly feasible, but I still want to get there. And for those of you who just joined me, this is the background you see is actually my house. It's my house. I travel the world. I travel the country. Ooh, I wish it was the world. But I travel the country for a living, and I come to you every day from wherever I am in the country. And today is just south of Houston. That's where I live. I also go live every Thursday at 8 o'clock from where I am. So if I'm in New York, it'll be 8 o'clock New York time. If I am in California, it'll be 8 o'clock California time. This week, it's going to be 8 o'clock Central Time. I may have a little bit of a different background going on here, but I will still go live. Again, thanks for joining me. My name is Andrew Alvarez, and I'm the Latino Conservative. So first off, I've got some great news for conservatives out there. Great news for New Yorkers out there. There is a splitting 5-4 decision, Supreme Court decision, that backs religious challenge to Cuomo's shutdown orders. So in other words, religious groups got together, they banded together, and they decided, hey, if I can go to a liquor store, if I can go to a bike shop, if I can go get tools, I can go to church. Cuomo's blockade of churches basically was found to be unconstitutional by a 5-4 split decision. And I know right away, everyone is going to say Amy Coney Barrett was the deciding factor. And quite honestly, she was one of the 5 out of the 4 to vote for the religious groups. And she played a decisive role in the decision, which took the opposite approach of earlier court rulings related to the coronavirus restrictions in California and in Nevada. 2 key states there, California and Nevada, where there are strict lockdowns going on right now as well. The Supreme Court late Wednesday night barred restrictions on religious services in New York that Governor Andrew Cuomo had imposed to combat the coronavirus. And this is something that I've been trying to say as well. States are locking down. States are trying to be locked down. The Democrats want to lock down the country. Let's take a look at Australia real quick. Australia in the past 24 hours has reported 8 coronavirus cases in the last 24 hours. And they're open. They are open for business. And in fact, right now, they're so open for business that China's at war with them. Go figure. That's another podcast, so another episode. But the court ruling was at odds with earlier ones concerning churches in California and Nevada. And those cases decided in May and July. The court allowed state governors to restrict attendance at religious services. Now, that is in direct violation of our First Amendment right, which is freedom of religion, freedom to worship how we want. That's, again, that is what we were fleeing. That is what we were going away from when we founded this country. It wasn't just founded on good feelings and hope. No, we were leaving for a reason. We wanted to worship how we wanted to. We wanted to separate state and church. We didn't want to be forced to go through with another Spanish Inquisition because people were so set on us practicing our religion a certain way. It's like I tell people, you can't legislate salvation. And that is kind of what was going on right here. And if you let's take a look back. Let's take a look back to the church days, to the Bible days. When Jesus was walking this earth during his day, there's these two groups called the Pharisees and Sadducees. They said that you couldn't do so many things on the Sabbath day, which is technically Saturday, but that's a different channel. But if you took too many steps, you were in violation of the Sabbath day. When Jesus healed the blind man and said, "Take up your mat and go," since he took up his mat, he was committing work, which was a violation of the Sabbath. See, they were trying to basically legislate salvation, which is not what it's about. And that is what I feel like all of these restrictions about going places, religious places in specific, they're trying to legislate salvation, which is not the way to go. If God wanted us to have to do exactly what he wants, do that automatically, he would give us no choice but to do that. He gives us our free choice to do that. And that is one of our God-given choices that this country was founded on, is the freedom of life, liberty, and happiness. In an unsigned opinion, the majority said Mr. Cuomo's restrictions violated the First Amendment's protections of the free exercise of religion. In a concurring opinion, Justice Neil M. Gorsuch, however you say his last name, said Mr. Cuomo had treated secular activities more favorably than religious ones. Now here's a quote that he says, and I love this quote. "It is time, past time, to make plain that while the pandemic poses many grave challenges, there is no world in which the Constitution tolerates color-coded executive edicts that reopen liquor stores and bike shops, but shutters churches, synagogues, and mosques." It is another from Justice Gorsuch. Great words. And he is exactly right. If I can go to a strip club, I should be able to go to church. In fact, if I can go to strip club, I need to go to church. Churches aren't country clubs, they're hospitals. The court order addressed two applications, one filed by the Roman Catholic Diocese of Brooklyn, the other by two synagogues, an Orthodox Jewish organization, and two individuals. The applications both said Mr. Cuomo's restrictions violated constitutional protections for the free exercise of religion, and one from the synagogues added that Mr. Cuomo had singled out a particular religion for blame and retribution for an uptick in a society-wide pandemic. Now, I don't know how it could be said that Cuomo maybe singled a religious group out, but synagogues, if he's targeting synagogues, then that would be the Jewish community, right? Am I right? So wouldn't that kind of make him anti-Semitic? Go figure. So more in news. But before that, got to take another sip of my coffee. It's Folgers coffee, by the way. That's what I drink at home. This batch, I got to say, I got to give props to my girlfriend on this one. She brought me this big old thing of Folgers coffee in a whim. I was stuck here and I couldn't move, and she brought me this Folgers coffee, and man, it just hit the spot. But Biden plans to end fossil fuels. So Biden's plan to end fossil fuels subsidies faces big challenges. So this is something key to look out for. Joe Biden's promise to end fossil fuels subsidies worth billions of dollars a year for drillers and miners could be hard to keep due to resistance from lawmakers in narrowly divided Congress, including from within his own party. Think about that for a second. This was a huge, or like Donald Trump would say, this was huge in Joe Biden's campaign. This was questioned all the time, constantly, because he would come in one breath and say, we're going to ban fracking, we're going to ban fossil fuels. And then in another breath, he would say, no, I never said that. But apparently he has a plan out for that. The challenge reflects just one of the obstacles that Joe Biden will need to overcome as he seeks to usher sweeping measures to combat climate change and transform the nation's economy to a net zero emissions within 3 decades. Biden has said annexing fossil fuel subsidies will generate money to help pay for the broader $2 trillion climate plan. So, okay, he's going to annex them. Isn't that kind of what Donald Trump did to like mattress makers and car makers to make ventilators and masks? But he got knocked for that. He got shunned for that. And I'm sorry, I just knocked my camera a little bit, but oh well. And Joe Biden is saying he's going to do the same thing, but for fossil fuel companies. Where is the outcry for that? If he's annexing these companies, he's taking them away from what they are doing right now and trying to get them to do something else. But you know what? Okay, I get that. I actually think that is pretty cool. But there's no outcry in the media for that. But it's the media. You know my feeling on that. So other things on this that I think were key. He is facing backlash from lawmakers in a narrowly divided Congress, including from within his own party. Y'all forget that the Republicans picked up seats in Congress. And while I'd like to think that bills are bipartisan, they are mostly voted on down the lines. And when I say down the lines, down Republican line, down the Democrat line. It's either I'm voting Republican, I'm a Republican, so I'm going to vote this way, and I'm a Democrat, so I'm going to vote that way. It's hardly ever the same. But with the environment that it is now, the political environment that it is now, I don't see why more, and I could see how it wouldn't be too surprising how more people on either side are going to vote how they truly feel. And not so much on party lines, but on constituent lines, as it should be. Constituents are more important than party. Constituents got you votes. While Biden can take executive action to reverse President Donald Trump's rollbacks of rules meant to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, reforming tax breaks that allows companies to produce oil, gas, and coal more cheaply will require Congress to pass legislation. You know, I've said that before. A president can make an executive order. Congress, you got 2 houses of Congress. You got Senate and the Representatives, and you also have the Supreme Court. If they deem that it is unconstitutional, they can strike it down. The president has veto powers. So do the other branches. That's why they are set up. It's checks and balances there. Doing so could be hard, even though Biden spent 36 years in the Senate, where he is known as a deal maker. Biden a deal maker? Yeah, okay. It's dead on arrival in the Senate, said Gilbert Metcalf, a former Deputy Assistant Secretary for Environmental and Energy at the Treasury Department under former President Barack Obama, referring to any standalone legislation ditching the tax breaks if Republicans maintain control of the chamber. Even if 2 of Biden's fellow Democrats win runoff votes in Georgia on January 5th, bringing the Senate to a 50-50 split with Kamala Harris acting as a tiebreaker, chances of passing a tax package are slim, experts say. So yeah, he could face some big challenges in those, passing a tax break like that or removing a tax break like that. Besides, who wants to be known as a president to increase taxes when the president right before you just decreased them? I mean, come on, man. See what I did there? But let's talk about Georgia for a little bit, since we've touched on that. There's 2 runoffs going on right now in Georgia specifically that could flip the Senate. Republicans and Democrats are fighting right now in Georgia. It's more than just the presidential election. There is a runoff happening in January. And what a lot of people are saying right now is they are not going to go out and vote in January during the runoff because they think, and they've lost faith in the election system. It's kind of exactly what they want, I think. Representative Jody Heiss says to Newsmax, "We have no time to let feelings get in the way of voting in runoffs." I know some of us may have a certain orifice hurt. I understand that. I get that. But there's more than just the presidency at stake here. You see, the president is held to checks and balances, just like Congress is, just like Senate, just like the Supreme Court. Well, the Supreme Court doesn't really pass laws. They just make sure that they're constitutional. But if the conservatives lose the presidency, as it looks so far, we can still keep checks and balances in order by maintaining a conservative Senate and a conservative House of Representatives. The lines on the House of Representatives right now has narrowed. Republicans gained seats. Democrats, they gained a couple seats in the Senate. However, we can maintain that lead. We can maintain the majority in the Senate, but it has to happen in Georgia. And a lot of people are saying that they're going to strike, essentially. They're going to give a strike on voting because of all of the potential voting fraud that has happened. Many of President Donald Trump's supporters are calling for voters to abstain from voting in the races following claims that the president has talked about Georgia's elections are riddled with fraud. I get your concern. I really do. But one thing you've got to realize, if you don't vote Republican and you're Republican, you're giving 2 votes to the Democrats. Not just 1, but 2. So you take away your vote and the Democrat votes instead, so their vote counts and your vote doesn't count. So that makes it a 2 vote spread there. Not just a 1, a 2 vote spread. The fewer Republicans that go out and vote, the more chance that the Democrats have to win. And we can't let that happen. We've got to maintain the Senate. We've got a smaller variance in the number of Republicans to Democrats in the House of Representatives now. Let's keep the Senate. Let's keep that checks and balances in play, because I do truly believe that with today's environment, with today's attention to everything political that's going on, representatives in the House will start to vote more constituent-wise and not party-wise. I may be wrong. Nancy Pelosi has some real pull power. The Democratic National Committee has power. In fact, if you've ever done research, if you've ever watched people who make Congress for the first time, you'll see that after they're sworn in, I was about to say inaugurated. I'm no AOC here. But after they're sworn in, they get separated into their respective parties, and they get told it's about getting votes. It's about not letting the other party get votes. And that's all it is. It's a political game, and that needs to stop, which is part of why I still want to go do that. I'm still kind of tempted, even though I'm going to do a local election first. I'm still kind of tempted to go straight up to the big show right away, but I wouldn't have a chance. Just looking at numbers, looking at funding and everything, I wouldn't have a chance in 2 years, 4 years, however long. But the Senate's balance of power depends on this special runoff in Georgia on January 5th, where GOP incumbent David Perdue faces Democrat Joseph Ossoff, and GOP incumbent Kelly Loeffler faces Democrat Raphael Warnock. Republicans have 50 seats, 2 more than Democrats do in the caucus. The vice president can cast a tie-breaking vote in the Senate. So the way it works, each state has 2 senators. So that's 100 senators total. It could quite possibly be 50-50. Quite literally be 50-50. 50 Republicans to 50 Democrats. If that's the case, there still needs to be a vote. One thing, now that I think about it, why hasn't Kamala Harris resigned from Senate yet? I don't know. I'll have to check to see when her term is up, but I do know that when Barack Obama was announced as president-elect, he resigned as Senate. He dropped his seat right then and there. Why hasn't Kamala Harris? Because even if she does go on to be the vice president, through all of this election fraud case crap going on right now, let's say that her and Joe Biden do end up winning. She's still technically a senator. If there is a 50-50 chance, if there's a 50-50 vote going on right now, if there is a vote and it is split 50-50, Kamala Harris, or whoever the vice president is at that time, cast the tie-breaking vote. So they are technically a senator. This is no time to let feelings get in the way of what must be done right now. We must absolutely win the Senate, Heiss said Monday during an appearance on Newsmax TV. Yeah, I read a lot of Newsmax. It's not biased. It's conservative leaning, I understand. But at the same time, for example, the Supreme Court case that I talked about earlier with Judge Amy Coney Barrett, when I looked at the one on New York Times versus the one on NPR, which is left-leaning, 2 total different headlines. I can't even tell you right now exactly what they were, but the content of the stories were totally different. One, the NPR was making it seem as if Judge Amy Coney Barrett was doing everything to spite Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I'm horrible with names. And birth dates, by the way, in case you're wondering. But she was doing everything to oppose her rulings. New York Times just said, hey, here's the information. Same thing right here that I like right here with Newsmax. They say, here's the information. So speaking of here's the information, I'm going to give a little bit of an opinion. And I saw this as well on Newsmax. Scott Bio to Newsmax. The woke Dems actually woke the GOP. That's something to think about. Now, there's this whole movement, I'm sure you've heard, the woke movement. Go woke or get woke or go broke when it comes to actors and whatnot. I believe that is totally a socialist liberal conjuring. They made it up. The backing of it is made to seem like it's real social liberties minded. But I'd see it totally being politically minded. The woke Democrats thought they were inspiring their base, but all of the gains by the Republicans in the elections were results of the GOP being awoken, however you want to say that, according to conservative director and actor Scott Bio. I think it was huge. Bio told Saturday's The Count, hosted by Tom Basile and Mark Harplin, "We're being censored. TV shows are all woke. There is nowhere you can go in the culture anymore, movies, television, music, where you're not being lectured or being accused of something. It's completely out of control." So let me tell you a little story about wokeness that happened to me personally. Memorial Day or Labor Day, one of those days. It happened before 4th of July. I put an American flag out in my house. There were some children there that lived in that house. They weren't my children, though I accepted them as my own. They were my ex-fiance's children. Yeah, ex. For a reason, multiple reasons. But they were at school. I was on furlough. So I was at home not doing anything. Doing this, talking to this thing right here. I got called racist. These kids are so woke that they called me racist for putting out an American flag. Mind you, they're all half white. I never thought I would live in a country where I would be called racist for putting out an American flag because some kids are woke. And it's not just what the media is teaching the kids. It's not just what they're seeing on TV. It's what they're being taught in schools. You've got Ivy League schools that are teaching, that are extra super liberal and teaching liberalism. You've got schools out there that are so woke, they are forcing students to denounce God or they fail. What kind of woke is that? One of my favorite actors, Gabriel Iglesias, has a show. I love his show. It's funny. It's hilarious. One thing caught me by surprise, and I really and truly thought I was going to stop watching the show after this. But one of his students, the Latina students, and mind you, Gabriel Iglesias, it's primarily a Latino show. One of his students is woke. And she started putting out this narrative that Latinos, the O in Latino indicates that it's a male. So she wanted to be called Latinx. Okay. I will never call someone Latinx. I won't. If you don't want to be called Latino, I won't call you Latino. I won't call you anything. I will call you maybe American, but I will not call you Latinx. You see, that wokeness is the same as the cancel culture, trying to cancel and rewrite our history by things that are unfounded, by things that are made up, by things that are opinions. They're trying to rewrite our history, saying America wasn't founded when the Constitution was written. America was founded when the first slave came over. And I get the I get the animosity towards that. I totally do, because My Latin people were slaves too. We're still slaves out there. We're slaves with jobs. We're out there picking corn, picking fruits, vegetables. I went up to Washington State. Almost as far away from Mexico-U.S. border as you can get. And there were signs for hire in Spanish. Cheap labor. So I get the animosity towards being slaves. Now, granted, there was no beatings, none of that. I understand that. But trying to cancel and rewrite history because of some feelings, that doesn't go well. Another thing he says, and I'm going to put a link to this video in the description here in my bio. But he says he talks straight. There's no gray area with him. This is Scott talking about President Donald Trump. And I don't need to take out my political decoder ring every time he speaks. I think that in itself is Trump's connection with the people. So how many of you have ever heard or tried to listen to a politician talk? It's a little hard sometimes. Both sides, it's hard. I've caught myself trying to go down that trap a couple times, and it's just hard to understand what they're saying, especially when they're trying to do the whole politically correct. I'm going to speak in a legalese that nobody else can understand, or I'm not even going to answer the question directly. I'm not going to answer yes or no. That's why you see so many people nowadays saying yes or no. Do you feel that this is wrong? Because quite honestly, we need yes or no answers. And a lot of these politicians now are avoiding questions like that. And they won't answer a direct yes or no. But back to the whole cancel culture. I've been accused of being racist. I've been accused of being white supremacist. I've been called a coconut. For those of you who don't understand that, since I'm Latino, it's brown on the outside, white on the inside. Never once have I been called anything like that by someone who wasn't woke. Every derogatory comment to myself has been by someone who was quote unquote woke. Now, does that mean that they're wrong? That they're bad people? No, I think they're misinformed. They're underinformed. And I think the Democratic Party, I'm going to bring it back to them because I believe that they are the root to all of this. I believe that they are intentionally putting false information out there, putting partial information out there to keep everybody partially informed, to keep people ill-informed, underinformed, misinformed, so they can go in and claim extra votes so they can lead us towards a socialist society. You want to see how great socialism works? Look at two places. Look at an Indian reservation. Indian reservations of the richest Indians. And I'm sorry, I used the incorrect term. Indigenous tribes reservations. I apologize. I've got some of that blood in me too. But I grew up using the term Indian, so I'm using that term. That's just how I grew up. It's hard to break a habit like that. Just like I can't say I'm straight anymore because that's been canceled. I had to call myself cis or heterosexual. I don't know if that's even acceptable anymore. Cisgender, what? I don't know. I'm straight, guys. And the indigenous peoples, if you want to see an example of socialism, go look at these indigenous tribes. Look at their reservations. The richest nation out there, I want to say it's the Navajo. Their reservation is poorer than the poorest U.S. county out there. Reservations are socialist. Now, you have casinos on these reservations. I understand that. There's a lot of money that goes through these casinos, but how can someplace where casinos and liquors and all of this extra stuff, extra money coming in, how can a place like that be so poor? How can a place like that be so poor that it is poorer than the poorest county out there? Go figure. Also, go look at China. China is socialist. I'm sure you all know this. The Chinese Communist Party is an extreme example of what the Democratic Party would be. They're the party of the rich and the poor. You've got some very rich people in China. They're out there. But it just takes a few Google searches to see the sweatshops, to see people who live in huts, to see people who live in mountainsides, to see people who make their living every single day by what they can gather for that day. And if they don't gather for that day, if they can't, they don't eat for that day. They go dig through landfills of trash, and that's where they find whatever they can find to sell, so they can find some little bit of money to eat with. That's socialism, guys. It's not all of this. Everybody gets taken care of. Everybody has equal stuff. No, it's not. It looks pretty. That looks pretty. Free healthcare looks pretty. Free education looks and sounds pretty. But it's not. It's just not. How do you get there? By taxing everybody extra? What about the people who don't work, that are going to have the same that you have? What's going to happen is you got one group here that's going to say, I'm not going to work because the government's going to give me this stuff anyway, so I don't have to work. And they're right. They don't have to work because they're going to have the same stuff you have that you work your ass off for. Pretty soon, those people who are working are going to start realizing the same thing. Then they're not going to work. Same thing with this lockdown. I think the lockdowns are a trial run for this. They're a way to get us acclimated to this. But let me ask you this. If you start locking down all of these stores, who provides for the stores? Who's going to go buy from the stores? If they can't open the stores, who's going to go buy for the stores? If you shut down these jobs, how are we going to get the money to go spend at the stores? Shutting down these plants, and not just like plants, oil refineries or whatnot, just, food plants, factories and whatnot. You start shutting these down. Who's going to provide food for the stores? I tell you who's going to win in this. Amazon, Walmart, Best Buy. All of these huge retailers that have profited and had soaring profits during the quarantine. All of those, they're going to prosper. The rich. Your mom and pop shops, who maybe can't afford to have such a robust website. And even if they had somebody that could build a website for them, that could build an online presence for them, they don't have the ad budget that Amazon or Walmart or Etsy does to promote their products. They have to go out and maybe just go buy some Facebook ads, have people share their posts and whatnot, but still, that cannot compete, because what happens is once you put an ad there on Facebook, if somebody clicks on that ad, then goes back to Facebook from your page. Now all of a sudden, places like Amazon, Best Buy, Walmart, they do what's called they create a similar audience to what their sites are. Facebook algorithm will identify buyers that are looking for similar products on their site. Look at Wish. Wish does the same thing. In fact, I am now, since I mentioned the word Wish, I'm going to have loads of Wish ads on my Facebook. But they create similar audiences. So someone who's looking for a product similar to what they have to offer, they're going to get that ad for Walmart, Amazon, Wish, Best Buy. One of those ads, Wish, by the way, who's from China, they're not going to get the mom and pop shop anymore because these other stores can spend more money on those ads. Makes sense? The people who benefit from these lockdowns aren't the average people who are being saved from the coronavirus. It's the big stores, the big retailers. And here's a thought for you in leaving. Y'all notice how the flu isn't a thing this year so far? It's not. Because, everybody's wearing their mask and social distancing. Y'all notice how the coronavirus is spiking? Because no one's wearing their mask or social distancing? Which one do you go with? It's a question. Hey guys, thanks again for listening to me rant and rave today. I know we had a lot to talk about off of 4 topics, but thank you again for listening to me. I'm really trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, so please help me out. I'm going to put the link to Scott Bio's video down in the comments below. I'm going to make it put it down into the description below. I can't talk. I'm sorry. So check that out. I've got a CashApp there if you want to throw me a few bucks to help support what I do, help to support the cause. I'm also this year taking on a character called Vato Claus. That's right, Vato Claus. I'm going to introduce him in my next video. But Vato Claus is going to be blessing a family this year. You can also use that CashApp link below to help out with that cause. Thank you again, everybody. Y'all have a good day. Be blessed.